All right, welcome back to the A Lot of Words podcast, answering questions people actually ask. We're joined once again by Pastor Matt Smith, senior preaching pastor of Barabbas Road Church in Southern California. Matt, welcome back.
Thanks. I like the name of our podcast.
I do too. Do you want to tell the story of how this name came about?
Okay, so we were texting back and forth, and I had really great ideas that you went and sent to Chauncey and said, "Hey, what do you think?" And he said, "Well, that sounds like it's just too many words, a lot of words." I said, "Well, why don't we just call it A Lot of Words?" Mm-hmm. And then it immediately went back and forth. We just really loved it, and so it's the A Lot of Words.
It is the A Lot of Words.
That doesn't sound as fun as it was. It felt like a discovery.
It was a discovery.
Yeah,
we were both mining our text messages, and that's how we found it. Yeah.
Well, who knows? Yeah,
people seem to like it. We like it, and that's all that matters.
I don't listen to podcasts, so the idea that what we're going for with titles and this and that.
Yeah, you have no idea.
Jonathan Edwards titled his books like a paragraph long. You know, you can't do that for a podcast.
Yeah. I listened to Sinners in the Hands of the Angry God. Someone used AI to create like a hardcore metal version of it, and it was incredible.
I love that.
It was incredible. I will play it for you after this. It is phenomenal.
Oh my goodness.
And they did one with A Mighty Fortress Is Our God, but then they took the actual, it's Luther, playing all the instruments. It actually it's a YouTube video of him rocking out to the song, and it's amazing.
My favorite thing is there's a meme where someone took some charismatic church where this black lady with short hair is on the mic. She's the priestrix or whatever. And she gets up there and she's like, "The devil's," and then all the people go like this, and they just made it headbanging metal right when everyone does it. And it's it hits the hardest. I'm like, look, I'm not a charismatic church guy, but if that was a church, that would be, I don't know. Oh yeah. It was heavy. I'll just say that. I was like, man, if that was an album or whatever, that was
as the
really
kids say, this song slaps.
You don't even know the words kids say.
I don't.
Have you heard the word cinema yet?
Outside of film, no.
No, that doesn't mean that. I mean, someone's like, man, that was so cinema.
It's weird.
That was and then we'll say they say that's fire, and people say vibes a lot, but cinema is one I hadn't heard. And so that's being used. Lucille, my 4-year-old yesterday said,
it's terrifying.
Something like, "That's some W's in the comment section," or something. And I'm like, what is that?
What?
Or what W's in the chat? Well, I don't know. Someone look it up. It made me feel very uncomfortable that my 4-year-old knows that.
Yeah,
I sound like a terrible parent. A lot of people don't let their kids see any social media. We definitely we're different.
I know it's a Discord thing. I know that.
I don't even know what Discord is.
I know you don't. That's okay.
All right. So what are we doing today?
Yeah, well, funny enough, we're talking about AI. I do have a pop
AI.
AI.
Okay.
About AI, artificial intelligence, specifically, I think with
not the city of AI in the Bible.
Not the city of AI. No, your biggest use case for it is ChatGPT. So I think a lot of your answer is going to be based upon ChatGPT. But
I've been studying this a lot. So
broadly,
I have opinions. If that's what you want.
No, we're not here for those. No.
I have a lot of words about this.
Yeah, you got a lot of words. But I do, every time I want to start with the popcorn question. This one is, if you could choose to inline skate or surf for the rest of your life, you can only do one or the other, which one would you pick? And why? And then tell the people why I picked inline skating.
All right. Well, how do I say it? Okay, I love surfing. I really do. I hate surf culture. I despise it. It's too hippie-ish for me. Mm-hmm. But I do love surfing. But the waves aren't always good. And the moment I have to start thinking about what board to pick for the day, I'm part of the hippie surf culture that I hate. So inline skating's always there for you. It never departs and is there. It's always consistent, and you would get way fitter inline skating than you would surfing every day. Are you saying that I couldn't do any other exercise?
You could do any other. Yes, one of these would leave your life.
Well, I don't understand. I have to get rid of one, or I don't understand the question because I really want to get this right.
Yeah, you would have to get rid of one. You'd only have the option to do.
Oh, I get rid of inline skating. I can live without inline skating. I need to surf. Yeah,
but you do love
surf. Yeah, so I have this thing. So with the jiu-jitsu training, when you get older, and in general, I don't think running is great for you. I think that people that like to run, that's fine. It's usually we run. The reasons we start running isn't why we run, right? We start running because I want to do cardio and get in shape. It's super inefficient because as you get better at running, you get worse at the benefit of cardio is lessened because you get better, efficiency. But as you run, you get fitter at running, right? And so then the goal is like, well, what do you want to run for? Like it's great for base fitness, but it's hard on your joints. I think walking is better for you, but inline skating though I know it's nerdy, but like, I'm not talking about like just rollerblading. I mean, I went through this phase where I decided that I was going to get for my legs and cardio after jujitsu, I was going to go inline skate and with those rollerblades that have the big wheels and they're short. They look like shoes.
Yeah.
If you Google this and you see these people that do it, it is hardcore. You're going like 20 miles an hour in these things. So I was like, got my fanny pack and some short shorts and my rollerblade.
Yeah.
They're not rollerblades, they're inline skates, carbon fiber, giant wheels, and you're going like 20 miles an hour. And it's such a good exercise, but it's low impact. And so back when we rode, the reason you can do so much volume is it's low impact. So I thought, I'll try this. And it's so nerdy in one sense that I loved it. And so I was doing it for a bit. But yeah, alas, surfing is what I choose.
Yeah,
okay, I do like surfing more.
I do like surfing. Yeah, I haven't inline skated since.
Gosh, that's embarrassing that my inline skating thing.
And everyone knows, and a lot of them.
I wore pit vipers.
You do, yeah. It's a full.
It's a costume.
Yeah, you're a 1985 explosion.
My favorite thing is if someone from the church were to be driving by with somebody else and had to say that's my pastor. That was sort of oddly funny and humorous to me in my own inside joke. I have lots of inside jokes to myself. That was one of them.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thanks. Now that everyone skipped through that and is joining us right now in the content when we actually talk about the topic for today, which is artificial intelligence. I don't know if this first part is just for my humor, but I do think people will enjoy getting to know you and all your idiosyncrasies. But again, the format is Matt doesn't know any of the questions about to ask him, though he broadly knows the topic that we're going to talk through. So the first question is, when Christians hear AI, when they hear artificial intelligence, they think of anything from like calculators to the Terminator. So how would you define AI? And where does it sit in the context of theology?
Wow, that's a big question. Okay, so basically the way I see it, so the way I think that people ought to view AI is that it's as a language learning model. And so what it's doing, and people can correct me if I'm wrong, but like the basic idea of what it's doing is it knows language, and then there's a certain sort of percentage of words that follow upon words. And when you get enough language into the model, it knows how to predict the next words, sentences, paragraphs, and so on. So it can create the illusion of like intelligence and cognition. Although it's not actually intelligent, it is just a system. But what's powerful about the idea of this, a lot of data goes in, so it has a lot of words to work with. So it's very good at pattern recognition. It's very good at replicating and imitating pattern. But I think and so it gives this illusion of being able to really think and react, and it's very human. But its humanity is always an echo of your own. So it's if you understand what it's doing, it's really, really powerful. But I think it freaks people out because of like the Terminator and all this idea that you have sort of cognition. And that's not really what's going on with AI. But I think as Christians, knowing that it's a language learning model, I just like that terminology because we deal in the word. And I think right now, like one of the most interesting things is that, as Christians, like words are important. We say this, it's like so basic and obvious, but it's a super big deal. Like God spoke and everything existed. So the word of God pre-exists existence, physics, science. Like the word of God is more certain than any other thing. And these are words. And so the very first challenge in the Bible is Satan tempting Adam and Eve. Like, did God really say? It was a conversation about words. And so, believing not just in God or what God did or who he is, but believing what is said about God is what the gospel is. We're believing the good news, words about the gospel. And so, Jesus called the word of God. So in other words, we're a people of the word, and we just come through a generation, this is an aside, but I have to say it, where, back in like the 2000s, for example, the culture was getting Christians to say, for example, like with the gay marriage debate and things like that, oh, words don't matter. We're saying, oh, well, what's the difference? Who cares if we call it marriage? And we would say, oh, it's just semantics. And Christians sort of fell for this large part. And we're sort of like, yeah, I get it. It's just the sentiment. And okay, who cares? It's semantics. And then as gay marriage comes in and then the pronoun rage happens, we see that the other side recognize that words matters because now you don't get the pronoun right. And they're like, how dare you? Words have always mattered. Christians just sort of fell for it for a minute that they didn't. Words are really important. And so when you look at something like a language learning model, it's a powerful tool precisely because words matter. I think in one sense, it's the fact that it's language that it's dealing with. There's a power in language that we sort of dismiss. And I find it to be fascinating. I think it's the power of how words are put together, the creative capacity of words. This tool is a really great, sort of partner if we use it right. That's my view on it. And so I think that when we think of like sort of AI in general, most of us think of some sort of robot that's doing things, and it's true. It kind of does. Like I bought the last car I got with you and I using AI basically bought the car for us. Right. So it did all the research, it did the negotiations. So the little AI agent did all that. So there's an element of AI that's going to automate tasks that are sort of menial language tasks that make sense. But what I'm interested in as a pastor in particular is the ChatGPT kind of language learning model in this purest sort of, right, like as an editor essentially. So I don't want to jump the gun too much, but I think that AI as a tool, and I'll specifically for me, I like ChatGPT, but is the best editor that has ever existed. It is better than anything that we've ever had. It is not a good content creator.
Yeah, explain that.
Yeah, so I think that where AI is so interesting and so misused is that someone asks it to write something. So it's really fun if you say, hey, make a rap song about this, and it can do it, but it's all derivative. And the reason it's good for a rap song is rap is really derivative, just to be perfectly honest. Like it's just as a genre, you're basically trying to make things rhyme with rhythm. AI is great at something like that because there's only so many derivations, like it's derivative. But when you're writing and you're doing ideas, if you ask it to, put something out, it's just taking from all the information that exists and giving you the most generic information. And so if the information you're trying to like produce is generic, so like contract law or something like that, well, that's really helpful, right? But in something like theology, you're not trying to be clever, but you are trying to see the text. I think there's a lot out there. Like for example, we talked about this last week a little bit, but in your Bible, for example, in Colossians, that last part, it just says rules for households. And the commentators are then going to write about the rules, wives and husbands and this and that. This really, really misreads the text. It's not terribly helpful in that sense. I mean, it's helpful to remind you this is the section that talks about wives and husbands, but it's a letter. It's not just like, here's rules for households. It actually goes so against the spirit of Colossians. So if you just ask ChatGPT what it's going to tell you, it's going to tell you the rules for households. And in other words, you're going to stay derivative. It's very unfortunate. And so I think what happens is we're coming in sort of the fear everyone has is that, especially when you're learning a subject and you need to write something, that people are going to have students are going to have ChatGPT write it. And I think that's true because a lot of education, the goal is derivative in that sense, but that's not how education used to be. And so I know you've asked one question. I'm going
well, yeah, that's on my list is kind of explain that because I know I've talked to people, even in our church, where their kids are going to schools where they've outlawed ChatGPT.
Right.
And like, do you think that's the right move forward? I understand they're doing that so the kids don't get dumber, that it could actually be creative. But do you think that's the right angle to take on that? Or like, is it a tool to be used in academia or not?
Yeah. I think right now, academia is trying to catch up to what AI represents. But I think there's a threat to how we've been educating our children and ourselves. We basically, so before the typewriter, like when I had to do work back in college
with cursive.
No, back in high school. When I was in high school, like we had like word processing. I mean, we would use the computer, but oh my goodness, like you would write out essays with your hand, and paper and pen and pencil. And then you'd come back and when we did research, you'd use the note cards and you had to know the Dewey Decimal System. I'm not like, once we got the internet, you could do internet research. But I remember when I first was going to school, internet research was sort of a little bit seen is less. Well, and in highest like PhD level stuff, it's still kind of true. Like getting source material, you still have to have access to libraries, materials. But even that's changing so rapidly because the digitization of everything. So anyways, when it comes to education, when you think about classical education, the goal is to help us to know how to think, like to create a good epistemology. In other words, epistemology is how you know something, the science of knowing. And so we think that school it's become rather rote repetition. We're trying to inculcate sort of values so the kids need to be able to like repeat. And so here's the things we want to know. And the problem with that is like our kids are being fed, a bunch of gobbledygook about gender and this and that, and now they don't even know math, right? But all that aside, really you're only in school for a certain amount of your life, ostensibly, right? And so then the idea is that if you learn how to learn, to be a critical thinker, which is what old school classical education was, ChatGPT should not be, or AI should not be a threat at all. So the reason I think that schools are outlawing it is that they're still stuck on the idea that education is to get your kids to say the same thing you just did, to propagandize them. And a true like classical sort of idea is that you're helping them to think with the same goals and tools that you have. We've abandoned that as a culture a long time ago, but I think AI is forcing us and will force us to go back to that. I'm actually more on the Pollyanna side of AI. I actually think it's going to be a very good for our society. I think all of the Luddites and the people that are against it right now are misunderstanding what it is, misunderstanding what education's goal is, and really, it's really stupid. Like, so for example, most people wouldn't argue against spell check.
Yeah.
Right. And so if someone thinks that you're going to write using AI, well, yeah, at certain levels, if that's a character issue, not a tool issue. But more importantly than that, AI is not a good writer. And so if you think it's a good writer, your writing's crappy and you need to fix it. But a lot of kids and people going through school, it's a shortcut. But anyways, let me go back to what I mean. If the goal is to teach how to think, you think the normal classical kind of idea would be the grammar stage. We kind of mentioned this last time too. The grammar stage of education, the kids hear the terms and they're familiar with it, but they're hearing the same things that the older kids are working. ChatGPT is not going to help them or not. It actually be a benefit. They can explain terms very rapidly. But then you start to get to the logic phase. And this is where something like AI is so helpful, because as a sparring partner, and I'll get into this in a minute, but I use AI now so much and it's helped me so much, but I use it as a sparring partner for everything I produce. In other words, it is the best editor you can ever have. I can check and recheck. When I say something where I'm going to say, like, for example, tonight I'm teaching and I can say, what are the arguments against what I'm saying? Like, come against me. Let's go through this. Like, be stronger. Let's, steel man this.
Yeah.
And you start to find the holes. I can't do that.
Right.
Normally, I can't go call someone up and debate all day. Like, it's just, this is something I've never had before like this. And it's helped me. I mean, if someone as a pastor not using this after this conversation and they reject that, man, you're superstitious. Like, I just don't know what to tell you. Like, that's silly. Like, why would you not want to sharpen? But anyways, going back to the education, when the final stage of any education isn't logic, you'll see them into debate, which is ultimately rhetoric, and which is the ability for you to take ideas and then hear them, logically understand where flaws are, what have you, and then rhetorically use language to convince, polemics and exhortation and encouragement. Like, in other words, verbal interaction. And so old school, you think of like education, we think of memorization, that's very low in the educational sphere of things. But your ability to then articulate ideas is seen best, not in writing papers, but in debating. And I think because of the ease of internet and print and this and that, it's really made a lot of our education written. And so there is a moment where writing is important, don't get me wrong, but I think it's different than education. So what's happened is we're educating everybody to basically write for the academy. And so they're all talking to each other, but like normal people are dumb. And so what ChatGPT is doing is allowing normal people to not seem so dumb when they write. But then when you talk to them, you know what I'm saying?
There's a disparity there.
And the reason people are impressed by its arguments is because they're not used to making arguments. So in other words, I think education is going to change. I think ChatGPT is going to change. I think it's already doing it, where banning ChatGPT is fine, but that means that they're still having you write. all their answers. The highest education is you're going to come in and they're going to interview you on a subject, and your ability to understand how the Iliad and the Odyssey relates to the subject matter, your ability to like understand, Hamlet, if that's what it's about, your ability to articulate. So you can't fake that. And we all knew in school growing up, the person that, we call them book smart. Old school education, there's no such thing as book smart. You're either intelligent or you're not. Your ability to actually take that, and that's what, unfortunately, you don't really get to in higher education until you get to like your master's level, where you're actually interacting with your sources. So even at the collegiate, like undergraduate level, when you're saying something, you validate it with sources to quote it, which is a good study, like a good research habit. But as you go up higher in education, you're actually trying to interact with sources more. You're challenging sources. You're interacting with which is, you're not really doing that at the lowest level. We've pushed back, in other words, the goal of education all the way to like master's level stuff before you actually are using rhetoric, essentially. And even then, you're writing the academy. Half these folks, when you read like Calvin's Institutes, it doesn't sound like anything done from a PhD level now, because he was a pastor, he was writing to people. So I think AI is going to create a revolution of learning where we're going to have to speak and debate and articulate and argue. And I think it's going to be a net good for education. I think we're not going to be there yet. So I think the generation coming up right now is the
guinea pigs.
I think they're going to get smoked a little bit with the changeover. But I think the following generation, like our grandkids perhaps, like will be really, if we're here, this will be a really fun thing to see. I think it's going to bring back a value in the ability. I think also think about business. Like when the internet came up and email came out, you could just email someone. And then when you got bots, essentially mass emailing people, think about how much you erase, you don't even look at. Same with phone calls. Someone could call you on the phone. Like I literally just, all the spam calls, they're so annoying. They're AI. You don't even trust those. So what do we trust now? It's not even virtual meetings. It's meeting in person. Like if you have a big meeting, you meet them in person, face to face, which is old school. But what's happening is there's authenticity. So what AI is creating is a crisis where we don't just want authenticity as a luxury. It becomes the highest commodity in interaction is authenticity. And so I think that's a good thing. But I think there's some real interesting like things that are going to happen with that,
Yeah. Do you think more people will show up in person to church because of this? Just because they're like, this is actually authentic. I can stand here. I want to talk to a pastor. Because already right now I see people, I was talking about, I didn't want to bother you with this, so I just asked ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Or as we'll get into a little bit later, like watching a live stream, I think in 3 to 5 years, someone will be able to just type in, I want Pastor Matt Smith preaching on, Colossians 1, and it's going to generate you doing that.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be a moment, obviously, where that happens, where people are going to use the internet for their own personal sort of curated experience. But I think that sort of, they call it like the hallucinations, the AI hallucinations. I think people are going to get a little more wise to it as they use it more, that it is unsatisfying. Like, in other words, I think there'll be a moment for this, a crisis. Well, you want me to get, so here, I'll give you my conspiracy. This is what I think. Let's get crazy.
Before I know you were going to go, because when I some of these questions I asked ChatGPT, what is the top questions you get by Christians about AI? And the first two were, is AI a sign of the end times? And is AI the mark of the beast?
Well, I don't want to go there yet. Let me say why. I want to first talk about how I use it, because one of my concerns right now is like a lot of churches, like colleges and pastors are writing about AI in a way that makes me really uncomfortable.
Yeah, how so?
So I'll hear folks from some really prominent places I really love and appreciate say things like, well, they're making very strong either or statements. Like if you use AI, you're not a pastor, or you're not good, or you're not following the Lord. And it's just a really ignorant type of statement. And people love sound bites. And it's just that reaction shows some sort of, in other words, I think that pastors should use AI. Now, I don't think pastors should ever buy sermons, but you could already buy your sermons. Like that's duh. I don't think pastors should use AI to write their sermons. That's not what I'm saying. So I want to be this really clear. I think every person writing today should use AI to help them. It seems silly that they wouldn't. but I'm not telling them to have AI write for them.
Right.
Those key distinctions. And so what gets into it is people are like, oh, well, you've got to like hold back from using it. And that's not what I'm saying. Even when someone says to you, you've got to write it yourself so AI doesn't do it, that shows they do not understand what AI does. They do not understand how derivative it is, and that what they're writing and producing is low. And I mean that across the board. Like if you're saying something worth saying, you can say it better than AI. So here's where AI comes in. Like if you look at when David Jeremiah or John MacArthur or these big names that we know put out 1 million books, what's happening is they have a team of ghostwriters that are writing their books for them. They're coming as their ideas. They preached the sermon. They said the ideas, and they have a team of ghostwriters coming in. They're not sitting there with every single, like that's the whole point. Well, that's fine. Amen. People buy the books. They're great. And that's fine. They do that. That's how they're producing so many. Now, some might argue, say, no, Matt, they sit down each one. I'm like, okay, whatever. Someone's putting together the work, correlating it into a thing, and they're like editing it themselves. ChatGPT can do that much better. So for example, I was writing something the other day and I needed to understand, I needed some quotes because I know Augustine talks about this, Irenaeus, and this. I'm like, so hey, fill in, I need these quotes, and it's up like in 2 seconds. That's really helpful. But the biggest one for me is when I do a sermon, when I do writing, I'm doing the work. In fact, if I ask AI, ChatGPT, what is Colossians about? It's going to give me a derivative thing. And if you listen, I challenge anyone watching this, go listen to my Colossians series. AI cannot produce that. It will not produce that. But if I put in AI, and here's the funniest part, will recognize, I know exactly where my sermon fits compared to everything written on the subject on planet Earth. I can find out. I can be like, how does this compare? Where does it fit in the realm of Calvin, Luther, Zwingli, MacArthur, Piper? I can say all this. I can know right away how that fits, where the mistakes might be, where I'm weak, where I'm strong. But more importantly, if I have an argument that I'm trying to debate, what's the thread of my argument? And I have to argue with ChatGPT quite a bit. So that's a big part of this too, as a sparring partner I mentioned. But when it comes down to the actual writing and the actual producing of things, I can have ideas hanging and I can say, hey, develop this paragraph for me for a second. I'm going to work on this. I can come back and be like, here's what I want to say. And I can come back with what I write, and then I can edit it and go through it. But I'm producing so much faster than I ever could before. But they're my ideas. Yeah. Like I'm doing that. I think what any author or person ought to do is, if they're going to use AI in a responsible manner, they should just use it boldly. And then at the front of their work, just say something of how they used it. And that's the key thing. You can actually keep track in a log on AI saying like, can you print out or show like how much is you in this? How much is me? And it'll tell you exactly what it's done. For example, tightening phrasing, man, it's really helpful for that. But often it's wrong. Like it's ideas I almost always reject, but they really help as that sparring partner to come back. And so even though AI knows me really well now, it cannot still produce what I say. It can sound like a caricature of me, but it cannot do it. And it's not going to capture the analysis. And so what I think it is for pastors is, we're in a moment where in the past, back in the day, and this will lead in that last question, that's earlier in like the reason we know the names, John MacArthur and R.C. Sproul and David Jeremiah, was because these guys had a lot of content produced, right? They had radio tape ministries, and then radio came calling, and they had a lot of content. And so these were the men on the radio. And that was big. AM radio, people were listening to these names. They got very big. I listened to them right when I got saved. I mean, this is how we knew the names. And then as the technology developed, they already had sort of the platform. That's how we know. Same thing happened with Whitefield back in the day, Spurgeon. They had all these technological changes. Well, what's gone on here is that all these like churches and these groups have had whatever changes they've had. We're like, let's say you're some mega church in Tennessee. And, if you have enough people that are on your team, you can produce books by the sheer fact that you have the, what do you want to call it? The infrastructure. The infrastructure of people, money, whatever. And so you have some rare voices that we know because of radio, because of this, but like other people basically could sort of ape the whole experience. If they get enough infrastructure, they could sort of buy the system, they could buy the formula. And that's where you have churches that are like, thousands of people, and you got a pastor that's constantly printing out books that are basically who stole my cheese for Christians, like, but they're selling their books all the time. It's because they have the production value. They can put out the books. They can put out the stuff. And so essentially what's flooded the market was who had access to be able to get things out. Well, okay, all of a sudden, like, AI has changed that immensely, where everyone can now essentially get everything out in a professional manner. And so that's leveled the playing field. So all of a sudden, if you're making derivative stuff already, you don't really need your crap. AI can reproduce it. But all of a sudden it's valuing supremely anyone that has something to say. So if you actually have actual content, real things to say, AI becomes a really good tool, because that becomes that infrastructure to, like, oh, you can make the studies of it. You can do this, you can do that. Essentially what a giant team was going to do. So I do think, like, in that level, being able to have something to say, that you've done the work, that's a humongous benefit. I think AI levels that playing field, which leads to your question. So say it one more time, and then I'll answer it.
Just to follow up to that, they call it like regression towards the mean. And to your point, I think I see it with the creative aspects of AI, having a background in that, where the images it produces, the videos it produces, it's kind of just culminating into this like gray blob. So anyone who comes out with a unique idea, it looks so much more interesting and creative and special, because everyone's just used to the gray box. And so I think with teaching and preaching and writing, it's going to do the exact same thing.
Well, and it really goes back to the idea that our theology and our preaching, God didn't just give us a tape player.
Great point.
It's people, right? So it's embodied. And so like using these tools are phenomenal, but I think we miss that it's like about like, oh, well, don't let it steal your ideas. It's not about that. It's an embodied theology. Your ability to articulate it is absolutely valuable. And so I think when people, and AI can be wrong all the time. Like, and again, the things people are afraid of are character issues, and it is a shortcut, and it can cause people to really blow it. But that's a character issue. If someone's using it to produce big things, like the things they think they're doing with it, it's not, they're just more noise. And so there's a moment where I think everyone thinks, oh, this is great. It's like the first guy that found email. Like, I could just email everybody and it's great. I'm like, all right, whatever. There's a moment where it'll seem like it's awesome, but it's not. And so that's going to fade. And I think it's going to leave a longing for authenticity. And so I think AI has creating, we've already had it, a real crisis of authenticity, where it's not just something we value. So what I mean by that is, if I send you a video right now of Donald Trump riding a shark and jump in a helicopter, you're like, I don't believe that. I'm like, it's video evidence. First of all, I love this, because when people said, oh man, why couldn't anyone give us the video of the empty tomb? I'm like, you wouldn't believe it now. So you can have video evidence, you can have video testimony, it can be edited. No one believes video anymore. No one believes writing anymore. No one believes, you can make that fake political ad that Trump made with Jeffries and the rest of the guy. Like, it essentially was funny, but it leads to this crisis of authenticity, a real crisis, where all of a sudden, all right, so Barabbas Road Church, like this podcast, someone could have me saying, I love Mormonism, like, okay. And you're like, oh my gosh, the Mormons got a hold of us, and they started making the AI version. So no one's going to trust what's really, so for like political ads and this. So that crisis of authenticity is like, everyone feels it. And so like schools, we mentioned already, feel it, because they want to know that it's the student doing the work. So AI is a great tool, but it's bringing to the forefront all of a sudden the people, like, oh, we see all these like stories in the media about what's the lady, the president of Harvard, we found out she was like, what's it, copying? What's the word I'm trying to say?
Plagiarizing.
Thank you. Like words. Plagiarizing. Like, so we see she was plagiarizing and stuff. Like, so people could already like fake it. So what AI has done is creating a crisis where everyone can fake it. And we're like, that's true. Everyone could already fake it, but now it's easy for everyone to do, which leads to the question that you just said, which was the mark of the beast. Oh yeah,
this is what everyone wants to know. I texted it to just a few people from our church, and they're like, "Is it the mark of the beast? Is it the beginning of the end times?"
Well, let's be honest. So AI. So look, when Social Security numbers came out, we were not born yet, but I remember, like, I was reading all about these things, and there was a huge movement against the Social Security numbers and IDs, because they said it's the mark of the beast. Every time anyone that studies eschatology, let's say, we know that there's this thing called mark of the beast, and what is it, and whatever. We'll get in, and if you want to know more, go to my Tuesday night. But the real issue is it a sign of the end times? Well, yeah, we're closer than we've ever been. But is AI the mark of the beast? Absolutely not. I'm going to go to bat on that. It is not the mark of the beast. But I will tell you what I think is the mark of the beast based on AI. I'll just give you a guess.
Yes, please do.
So with Social Security, with like after COVID, during COVID, when people wanted you to not use real money, for example, and they say we don't accept cash, we only accept digital currency, people starting like, oh, but you feel it. That was the first time I think a lot of people were really starting to feel, wow, I can see how we go to a digital currency. And so what's at stake is the Bible describes there's a moment where there's this figure called the Antichrist. And if you're a futurist, you believe this is yet future, that there's an Antichrist who will at some point take away the ability for believers to buy and sell because they won't take some mark of the beast, whatever that is. And that's what the expression is referring to. And you start to see these sort of things. Well, global currency, all of a sudden we say, well, hey, if we all have digital currency, someone can control it and turn it off. Right. But there's still not like COVID was the excuse to pretend for a second why we would need digital currency because people are so afraid of touching people's money, but it's gone. A lot of people have kept it, but there's still a cynicism there. But with AI, all of a sudden, I think, and hear me out, I think the issue is going to be blockchain. So when I say blockchain, I mean like
cryptocurrency.
But I say cryptocurrency. What blockchain is just a code.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's a code that can't be replicated. Period. You can't copy it, paste it. It's you can't fake it. And so it's as close to a thing as an authentic signature that exists, period, in an internet space. And so you think about Social Security numbers, how many numbers? 7 numbers or whatever it is. So the idea is that's just 9 numbers, but like blockchain's how many numbers? I don't know what it is. It's just so long, impossible to copy, right? And so we think of that right now with crypto is essentially people are using and trading these pieces of code as if they're coins or money, but each piece of code is like a coin and it's being traded. And it's really kind of postmodern money. And in the sense that we have a currency right now that's not based on actual gold anymore. It's like fiat currency. Well, then what really makes blockchain different as a currency if everyone values it? Yeah, but like, what is it still? Like most people don't understand it because like, well, why am I caring? And then the people that get it, they're like, well, we all care. So all that's a weird conversation. So a normal person that's not a Bitcoin bro, just a normal person is still like a little weird about what in the world this all is, right? I think with the AI revolution that's happening, it's going to get bigger and bigger, I think, over the next 5 years in particular. We are all right now facing this crisis, but it's going to come to a head and it's going to be a big subject of elections and debates, and that's authenticity. So how do you guarantee authenticity? And so imagine, I'm just painting a picture, maybe I'm dumb, everyone knows this, but like imagine, let's say that the presidency wants to put out, like the Trump administration is going to do a speech. Well, they know that the other side's going to mess with it, or they can use AI to say what they want. So there's going to be, they'll have their own blockchain that authenticates some kind of stamp that this is actually them. It's not been edited or altered. So what you're getting is the original thing. If someone puts out a video, like video evidence in court, they would be like a blockchain signature that shows that this hasn't been edited. You can't edit it. It's uneditable because it has a blockchain signature, which all of a sudden, so when Barabbas Road Church puts out a sermon, if you want to hear the thing and you want to have, there could be a million sites where people are making AI versions of something.
Right.
But someone's like, well, I want to hear the original because we're going to, so the original is going to have some kind of blockchain, authenticity, some stamp, some thing that makes it so that that this is the actual
real
authentic
deal.
one. And so I think that'll happen like on the internet first, but it goes back to money. So like my wife and I, we got our credit card for like 3 times it happened. Our credit cards have been like stolen essentially. And so just now we just got someone buying Chipotle on our card and going to the gas station.
Thanks for that Chipotle.
Yeah, I know, right? And so we had to get a new credit card. And so when we called, it's so annoying because it takes like 5 days to get it to you. And I'm like, but Amazon and Apple they changed the number immediately in our phone. So before the card comes, the new number is already active and it's already changed on all my stuff. I didn't do anything. And it's kind of amazing. I mean, it's creepy, but awesome at the same time. So you get this idea that when we buy and sell, like the actual card itself is a little antiquated, kind of like keys. And, there's just no way that as we see this crisis of authenticity on information, it won't also be true for information called money. So when you think of most of your money is not stored, hopefully, in like a vault at your house in like gold coins, but it's probably on an internet somewhere with some ones and zeros, right? So we're all a little bit there. Well, all of a sudden, how do you keep it safe? Like we all can see, in other words, we all see the need right now for what I think is the mark of the beast. In other words, I can make an argument for why we all need it, which is amazing because never in history can we make an argument, not only that why it could exist, but for the first time we can make an argument why we actually need it.
Yeah.
And so just to push a step back though, as I think if you believe the Bible that there is such a thing, that mark and the mark of the beast and the Antichrist does not happen till the restrainer is removed. And the restrainer almost certainly is the body of Christ, the church.
Yeah.
And so in other words, I'm like, great, amen. Take all the stuff. Like I want Amazon to deliver everything I'm thinking about. Like, you know, we're going to be gone before we have to deal with that. But it is interesting that this thing that we see is one day going to be used. I mean, you can see the necessity for it for the first time that you couldn't before. And I think that authenticity we're coming back to is really where that's coming from. So buying and selling ideas, internet, it creates this literal, not just like we long for authenticity, but we have a crisis of it. And we're already at the very front end of feeling, I mean, just during like COVID, people were talking about misinformation, disinformation, which was all fake because the question is who gets to decide. There was a fake debate where people were trying to decide that they're the arbiters of what's true. What the blockchain does, it takes that away. You don't get to determine what's true. It just determines what's authentic. And that's real. That's the actual real debate.
Comparison,
yeah. And so I think that this is definitely something along these lines. I just can't come up with another thing in my head. And I could be wrong, obviously. At least right this moment, though, I can't foresee that not being something we start moving towards. I just can't understand why it wouldn't be that way. You know, I don't know. I'm not predicting any dates or saying something stupid. I'm just like, that seems to be impossible not to be necessary. Like we could see it right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. So maybe a lot of words needs our own blockchain so that people know it's us. I mean,
Chauncey will get us a blockchain.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think you buy them at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Shifting topics a bit. Obviously, you're very pro ChatGPT, pro AI. I do think there are pitfalls to it, and some spiritual ones. Like, what do you like? What would be some warnings that you would give? We were talking earlier. Chauncey and I were talking earlier about. I see now with like Elon Musk talking about Grok and ChatGPT, OpenAI. They're going to use this for nefarious reasons, and I was saying I think a great business idea will be already there's for like purity for pornography. You're just being able to type in what you want, and a video is going to pop up, which may lead some men to have like purity software for their AI models, or like they're not gonna be able to exist in society. What would you like? What do you see are some major pitfalls that Christians need to be aware of? Whether it's like what you said earlier, like the AI is not indwelled with the Holy Spirit,
right?
And it doesn't have its own mind. But then also, like what would you tell a Luddite who you're like?
Explain everyone what a Luddite is, so they know what you mean.
A Luddite is someone who's just like resistant to any new technology,
and like just out of principle.
Out of principle, yeah.
Right. So obviously I just think there's going to be pitfalls with the technology. Like you look at pornography, for example, back in the day, it used to be, you'd have to go to a place and get like videos or whatever. And so but now, like we talked about, it's on everyone's phone. Yeah. Well, with AI, obviously people can make it say a lot of things, but I do think I'm less concerned about that. I'll say why, because I don't think that, like, for example, Grok and Elon Musk's AI is like, what he's trying to build is a little more open that direction, but like ChatGPT, for example, is not. And so the big question is who's in control and that. But again, it all goes back to it. The education thing, we are so prone to propaganda because we don't know how to think. So AI told me, like, this is that whole thing we're talking about when people are talking about Israel right now. All these people that don't know anything about geopolitics, they're not like interested in geopolitics, but also like, I think we give too much to Israel. I'm like, oh, that's a really interesting thing. You're into geopolitics now. Really, tell me more. Why? They don't know anything. They're just repeating. Here's the problem. The confidence to repeat something that you heard from the internet, to actually then say it out loud as a good idea without any critical thinking, but having a strong opinion on it. That's the same person that wanted to lock people up during COVID because everyone said, like, you need to stand 6 feet away because that's the magic number. Like, you're that person. Like, let me look in the camera now. You're that person. If you do that, like, critical thinking requires you to actually like think through thoughts. And we've lost that we've lost that. So again, let me just get into COVID for a second. When COVID first happened, they said, we need to flatten the curve. The idea between, and this was, they articulated it. We listened to it. They said, hey, we're going to be out of ventilators and hospital space. So what we need to do is make sure that we make COVID last longer. We need to spread it out so we can get everybody into the hospitals. We have enough space. We need to flatten that curve. In other words, instead of spiking and getting it done, there'll be a crisis that's going to overload hospitals. So we're going to flatten that curve. So everyone took 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And as soon as the 2 weeks were over, everything's shut down now. Then they said, now we need to stop the spread. Whoa. Anyone with critical thinking at that very moment, and should have said something when they changed the game. Ben Shapiro, Matt, all these people that you listen to that are smart people were like, yeah, we need to stop the spread. What are you talking about? No one articulated that, right? And so then what happens is people aren't good at arguing, so they made giant arguments to the other side. Just the most modest thing was, time out, you just changed the goalposts. The whole 2 weeks was to flatten the curve, not stop the spread. Now, it doesn't mean that, so now they had a duty to make an argument for why we needed to be shut down to stop the spread, but they never made that argument. They assumed, well, we're already shut down. We need to just, and everyone's like, yeah, that makes sense. I think that AI is going to make the crisis we feel is a crisis of a people that are unable to critically think. And so I think AI is the cure for that.
Wow.
Now that sounds crazy to me to say, but I think it is. I just think that you have to critically think, but I think there's going to be carnage until we get there. That carnage is that basically the crisis is the propaganda crisis, is what you're saying. Well, if everybody has an AI that tells them what they want to think, and they're like, I get it, but like at a certain point, when everyone's going AI and everyone is in their own little private echo chamber, there's major problems that are going to happen in the short term. But again, how do you, if I said to you in just a normal sense, how could you re-educate an entire population that just passively consumes media on their phones and they're just unable to critically think? You couldn't come up with a better solution than AI.
Wow. Yeah.
And so again, it does exacerbate certain problems, but it creates the only solution, which is to be a critical thinker. And so I love that there's that crisis. And I love that people have to actually recognize that all of their information is sort of like given to them in an echo chamber. So they actually have to think through if that's trustworthy. And people are already doing it. That's the other thing. Smart people that are using AI are already starting to have to ask a million questions. If you said, how many barrels do I need to order this thing? It might miscalculate which part of the equation. So you have to ask it 4, 5, 6 different questions. Oh, you're right. What I mean is this one. We're already getting a lot more savvy. But if you look at old news articles, they would just imply things with questions. We're not used to critically thinking. And so we're learning it. AI is making us become a critical thinker because, and that's the whole point of language.
Yeah.
So anyways, I think when you get away from language and you go into movies and cinema and emotions and memes, what happens is those are dealing in the realm of feeling and sentiment and emotion. What I love about AI is that largely it is a language model, and words, they can do those things, but you can see the patterns better and you can learn better. And I actually find this to be a really positive. In other words, I think that the church has a moment where we can educate. You can know more about the Bible quicker with AI than you ever could. Someone says, hey, I want to know, is the, you're reading through Genesis and you're like, is the Pharaoh the same Pharaoh in both scenes? And AI can tell you. And that's a very innocuous, easy question that you used to have to go on some, so those things are great. But if you start looking at politics, well, you got to start framing things, and especially when you have an opinion, when in a theologian, if I start typing in, so I've been debating covenant theology a lot with AI. And so I'm I've already in the past read, I've read Burkhoff, I've read all these things that are covenant theology, but now I'm able to really debate ideas. I very much feel like I understand more the Steelman version of things I'm going in. I think it's really powerful. So yeah, there's challenges in the short term, but those challenges are coming more because we're not critical thinkers. Yeah. If that makes sense.
It does. Yeah. It's it's a further step removed in the thinking that most of the questions I have are from, which is great. It shows there's a foundational bedrock.
Yeah.
That is in error, and AI is exposing that.
Yeah.
Which will hopefully then make critical thinking important again.
Right. Because it's words.
Yeah.
I think that's the best part. It's words. It's really, And AI is funny. You try this sometime when you're doing it. So when I'm doing like a sermon prep, after I'm putting in stuff and I'm debating things, I'll ask ChatGPT, I'll say, what did you learn? Because you have all the data.
Yeah.
And it will reflect the argument that it says, like, I knew this data, but I had not looked at this thing. And it's very powerful to like interact with it that way, because it doesn't learn new information. But remember, that's the whole point of like, when you look at the Bible as literature and you start to see things, it's like, you know, when you tell someone about Lord of the Rings, you say, well, this is actually going on. Here's what Tolkien's doing. You know, I don't need to get an interview from Tolkien. You can see that in the movie, like, oh, that's why they emphasize this. And you're like, oh, I can buy it. Or you're like, you're reaching. So again, it is a great sparring tool to make your critical thinking sharper, to develop that muscle faster, more directly. You don't now need to go to like a room full of smart people. And again, that's the problem, is these quote unquote rooms full of smart people are people that are all faking it anyways half the time. So for the first time now in a long time, you can get real, actual sparring partners for your ideas, assuming you have ideas. Yeah. Which is what we're getting to.
Well, on the point you just said, I remember after your sermon on Sunday, I kind of made fun of you because me and James were in the window and you called it, the ChatGPT, you said, he said this. And I was like, ooh, we're using personal pronouns now. Yes. Yeah. In that, and you just use it as you, like you interact with it and use personal pronouns, and you give it a personality. With that said, do you think it's wise for someone who wants biblical counsel to interact with their ChatGPT, their LLM, to do that? And also, do you think it's wise for like newer believers just to be on it in general? Or do you think they should just, like, if someone's just been saved, should they stick to just reading the Bible? Because I know in our congregation, a lot of people are starting to use it for counsel. Yeah.
So I think that counseling is an interesting thing, because you go back to it. What it's doing when you say this, let me make you all feel like crap for a second. We already face a crisis. All it's doing is revealing crises we already have. So for example, when people are using it for counsel, do you know what they were doing before that? They were using people as ChatGPT and just shopping for the counselor that's going to tell them what they want to hear. Yeah. So everyone's already used to shopping for the counsel they want. True. And so AI is a quicker trip to shopping. Yeah, you shouldn't do that.
Because its bias is to make you happy.
Its bias is to make you happy. And you can buy, like, it's going to create carnage. You're going to essentially talk to yourself with it. And you're like, you're right, I should divorce her. She deserves it. I was not, I should do this thing. Like, and so that's that hallucination where it's going along with it. If that's what you want to do, it's just revealing your heart. So like wisdom. And so yes, Christians should know the word. The ChatGPT is not what you need. Like 2 Timothy, right? It's not the thing that God's given us to make you like him. God's given us his word. We talked about that in the last podcast. If you want to replace replace the word with ChatGPT rather, that's on you. It's terrible advice. And if you think that's going to do, like, the very idea you want to do that, there's something majorly wrong with your faith. Now, can you use it to, like, hey, I got to talk to my sister about this thing, and, can you help me? Well, guess what? It's a great tool to say, but if you use it as a sparring partner. So, hey, I want to do this. And then before, it'll say, okay, do it this way. That's great. Pause. Is this a good idea? And let it hear it out. And you're like, well, what do you think about this? And so if you challenge everything, never listen. Like, if you ever write something, be like, is this good? Yeah. Is the argument tight? Yeah. Could it be better? It's like, what's wrong with it? Like, never, ever, ever go forward without doing that. And that's on you if you do. Yeah. And so again, I think it's going to reveal a lot of wishful thinking, but I think dumb people are going to get dumber. And selfish people are going to get more selfish. It's going to exacerbate everyone's echo chamber. It's going to polarize everyone to their worst instincts for a little while, which is wonderful, because now we can hopefully wake up. The only, like, okay, so the authenticity crisis, you want to know, how do I know God better? It's Gnosticism. This is where you know God better. And it's the only place. And so what AI is doing is creating this crisis where you're like, well, I don't need to go to I don't need to find pastors to tickle my ears, because I have one in my pocket now called AI that can just tickle my ears whenever I want. And at a certain point, the vapidness, the emptiness of that will be, you're going to hit bottom faster. Yeah. Is that good? No. But is it necessary? Sometimes yes. Like, repentance is when you confess to God your sin. The word in Greek is homolegeo. Homo, same, legeo, to say. So when you confess, I'm saying the same thing. Confession is just seeing yourself the way God sees you. Well, when you go on AI, you're now seeing yourself the way you see you. It's reflecting back to you truth from that perspective. Unless you purposefully use it to challenge you, it's authenticating you. So confession is the opposite. It's you seeing things from God's perspective, and it's conforming to the word. ChatGPT conforms to you. So it is dangerous for that reason. But again, the answer isn't, I've got to watch how much I use it. It's understanding what the word does. And so I'll just say this. If you're spending more time on ChatGPT than the word, that's on you. And you're going to reap the consequences of it. I like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like idea, like, don't do it. Like if you have to tell Christians, please go in the word or beg to go in the word at a certain point, I'm just going to say this, and I got to say it. Like I want to have compassion on people. But if you know that the word is God's word, this alone is God's word, and you know that this is the thing that we're sanctified by, that we're set apart by, that this word is what God wants for you, all these things, and you still want to reject it and don't want to look at it, you have to ask yourself if you're a Christian. If you don't love the word, now you can struggle reading it, you can struggle knowing it, but if you just given up even wanting to be that, making that the source for your information, and you're going to substitute it out, it'd be like saying about your wife, like, well, I don't even have to go see my wife. I can just like watch a movie about her or something. Like at a certain point, you don't love your wife. And so a Christian shouldn't do that. That's, I guess, what I'll say.
Yeah.
But that might be hard, but so you don't go to ChatGPT for counseling. And if you do, ask yourself who you're trying to conform to, because counseling and therapy is trying to get everything to conform to you.
Yeah.
And the Bible tells us, no, Christian, your job is to not be conformed to the world, but be transformed, be conformed to this word.
Yeah.
And so the real counsel in the word is, now, could you use ChatGPT and say, how do I conform to the word? What does the word say? Sure, it can help you.
Yeah.
But just like counseling in general, you can shop counseling and you can shop ChatGPT to say what you want.
Yeah,
So,
giving someone hard truth, it's not going to do that.
But it could.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's you are dictating what you want.
Yeah.
But you've been doing it all along. This is just going to reveal it.
Yeah.
That's my view. I don't know.
No, I think, a lot of this is, a lot of people have like a dystopian view of it, but I think everything you said, it's like a hopeful view. I would love rhetoric and classical education to come back into our culture, but I do agree that, there's going to be some damage.
I just hope that no one ever buys a Who Stole My Cheese book again, because you could just print that. Well, you could literally ask it a question. It can do it on the bathroom. You're like, I don't need to go buy a dumb book for that. So we saw this in Bible publishing when we mentioned before, when books were cheap and Christian books were cheap, like everyone had Bibles, but no one had nice ones. You had to actually go on the internet. And so what happened was, at first, no one was getting nice Bibles. No one was printing nice Bibles. There's no market for them. All of a sudden, the people that wanted to make nice Bibles made it like as an artisan. They made it above and beyond, right? And so then all of a sudden it created a renaissance of Bible rebinding. And I think that that's really elevated. So then all of a sudden the big publishers now are offering really high-end versions of the Bible, which, I mean, you're talking like aniline pull-up calfskin, veg-tan aniline pull-up calfskin with like special, everything done, real gold on the pages, like really nice things that are being done by big companies, Well, that all came about because of the backlash to the thing. So I guess the point is, there's an elevation, there's a space for elevation in that marketplace, and that was, a place to go higher. I just think that there's going to be a value of that. All of a sudden, people are they're going to be able to get the pablum easy. And so I just hope it puts out of business so many of these, like, purpose-driven pimps, you know what I mean? Like, just that it'll get, God forgive me if I'm saying that the wrong way, but just the pablum, they're like, hey, let me just tell you what you want to hear. Like, anyone can get that now. So hopefully they don't have an appetite for it and they want to be a real thing. Yeah. That's my hope.
That's a good hope. Last question I have is, thinking, you said marketplace and business, there's people in our congregation that, there's a real fear that they have that they're going to lose their job, or they can just see the writing on the wall that, AI is coming for what they do. Yeah. You and I are both old enough to live through the internet boom. I saw job switch and transition, and I saw the calculator replace jobs. And so what would you counsel that person?
What job did the calculator replace? The abacus guy? Like what?
Yeah, abacus guy.
Back in the day, there was a guy that had an abacus. And
paper.
Yeah. Okay.
You were in math class when they were like, we had to do everything long form paper, could not use calculators.
Yeah, I was like that too.
Yeah. And then I was like, a calculator? I was like, think of how many accountants.
When I was trying to help Guinevere with absolute value on math the other day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, the internet makes this so much easier.
There had to be, I mean, I don't know, but I bet tons of accountants lost. Why would you need an accounting assistant? The minute you got a calculator, you're like, see ya.
Yeah, and it makes it dumber. And there is something to be said about the fact, just real briefly, that we've lost our skill in a lot of subjects. Like we can't make concrete the way the ancients did. We literally lost the technology to make concrete that way. We've lost the ability to build ships. So technology produces the ability to make things a certain way, automation or however, but we lost some of the skill, the artisan skill that's passed down. Yeah. I think ChatGPT is going to do the same thing. I think there's a lot of jobs, and that's a hard thing, and that's reality. I mean, people are afraid of ChatGPT replacing all sorts of stuff. I think the argument with technology was, computers and robots are going to come and do all the menial labor, and so we'll be free to write and do art. And what's happening is ChatGPT is now doing the writing and art, and so the jobs are coming out as the menial labor. Yeah. That's going to get switched. That's not going to stay that way for long. I think right now, again, it just goes back to our tastes are so small that we're kind of satisfied by the pablum. And so I just think it's going to, first of all, I don't think the boom is going to happen all at once. I do think it's going to be a little bit slower than people realize. AI is not quite there. I don't think the profits even are there's a lot of circular money. Right. They're basically getting a lot of money in investments and then respending it to get like more data centers and whatever they're doing. I think there's a little bit of time. I think we're in a little bit of a bubble, an AI bubble, if I can be honest, where the 7 tech companies are basically everything in the stock market, AI, OpenAI, all that's really, there's no way they can actually make the profits. Everyone's gambling on the fact essentially that the profits for AI is going to come in, which is similar to the internet, the dot-com boom. I think that bubble is going to burst and there's going to be plenty of time for people to figure themselves out. I think automation's been coming. I think that if you're like contract law and you're just writing contracts, like, yeah, I think AI can make that better. Yeah. But again, it's going to push people to change, adapt. Yeah. If you have a current job right now, I just don't think AI is going to replace your job right away unless it's a job that's easily replaceable. I mean, the American system has produced essentially middle management, right? Is what we've been exporting. I do think that AI is going to take away a lot of like assistant work. And so then what do you do? Like, well,
so you constantly like, don't panic, but make wise decision making on, okay.
Well, if you're a Christian in general, God is sovereign. There's no plan B. So it's not like he hasn't foreseen this. And, if I were going into school right now, right, I would probably pick maybe a more blue collar trade probably. Or I would know my stuff, but like, if you're like, majoring in like Chicana feminist history, like, okay, I think so. What do they call it? Like the STEM jobs are going to be good, but even there, AI is going to make what you do better. I would say learn how to use AI. That's my first, like, it's not your enemy. If it's coming in the realm, know how to use it. Imagine not knowing how to use email right now and going to a job. They're like, what? We're going to email. Like, I don't like email. Like, oh, you're not going to get hired. Know how to use AI well. I would say use it for all sorts of things. Like play with it, like get to know it, know its weaknesses and strengths. And then it's a mirror. You're going to know you better. This will help you going forward in the job market. It'll make you better at your job, because when all of a sudden you go to your job and you can produce 10 times more stuff. Amen. And then also don't hide that you use AI. When all these people are trying to hide it. Oh, that's written by AI. Like, of course it is, doofus. Like, I'm not going to sit here and do this thing but it's me. Right. So if you can't write in such a way that it's you, then AI, you're going to sound like a robot. Well, that's your fault. Right. Like, so use it, learn how to use it, be an expert at it and be ahead of it. You have to deal with it. It's the most powerful tool we've had. Yeah. But again, I'm giving like one side that's a lot more positive than people are probably used to, but
I think that's really helpful, because it's easy to just doom and gloom everything.
Yeah. Hopefully I'm right. We'll see. God knows, and God's good.
Well, the NVIDIA earnings are tomorrow, and this will come out in 2 months, so we'll see if the bubble happened or not.
I think the bubble's going to burst a little bit, and then I think that's where, we'll see.
No. Matt, again, just thanks for taking your time to chat with us. Appreciate it. Sean, see anything to add?
Good for me.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for joining us.